Good evening. This is the Wednesday, March 20th, 2013 meeting of the Finance Committee. Our agenda tonight, call to order right at 7 o'clock. No transfers tonight. That's a good thing. The budgets we'll be going over this evening. I'm going to list them hopefully in order that we're going to take them. We've got minutes after that, and then we'll adjourn. Next week, we'll have the school department in with a presentation on the middle school project and their budget also. Tonight's budgets that we'll be reviewing include information technology, zoning board of appeals, the library, senior center, and elder affairs. Those are all parts of the Department of Public Services, the executive office of town manager, the reserve account, human resources, town hall, general services, and debt and interest. So our first budget tonight is information technology. Bill, you're here? Mm-hmm. Great, nice to see you. If you could come on up. I've been asking all the department heads to just kind of give a brief overview of their year and expectations going forward. And we always like to hear the neat stuff that you're doing in info technology.
Okay, yep. We had a good year this year. It was a very busy year. Had several significant accomplishments. I would say the biggest accomplishment this year was the new phone system. The old phone system, I think, was installed around 1997 or so. Eddie would know. But it had seen better days and was kind of wearing out, so we started looking at a replacement, and we ended up with an Avaya VoIP phone system that uses the town's fiber network. And we installed 119 phones. We did all the 10 buildings, fire, police, and all the other buildings. And everything is running nicely. My estimates are that will save the town approximately $6,000 a year. So, and it should be at least 10 years life cycle on that. So that was a big thing. And then just generally other day-to-day problem solving. We put some security cameras in. There's one of them right there right now recording everything, and it can see in this room. So we've got 7 cameras in town hall now. The console is down at the police station. Total, there's 72 cameras that include all the school buildings. There's, I think, 40 of them at the high school. So that was another big project that went out. All kinds of other goodies and fun stuff. I can't itemize them all.
Great. No, that's fine. The budget that has been presented by town manager is $138,592. I noticed I'll say the director's salary. There's a difference there, and I just didn't know if that was a preliminary number and we were trying to get things kind of settled down, or did you want to talk to that? That's up to you, Bill.
Well, sure. Eddie and I and Julie discussed a change in the salary. It's something that we've been talking about for a while now, and they agreed to increase it with a combination of tax levy and then also a revenue from the local access channel. The access committee, local access committee did meet and approve that. So that's kind of how that came about.
Okay. And if I could steal a little of your thunder on that. Sure. This is an area that we always are concerned with because we're not deep in terms of our experience and personnel within this area. So, Bill, I know we give you the theoretical standing ovation every time you come around for your new budget. So, yeah. But it is appreciated what exactly you do, which is just a hell of a lot of stuff around here.
Okay, well, thank you.
And I want to make sure everyone's clear on that. And I wish we could have reached your request on where that salary is, and we appreciate that number being in black and white.
Okay, great, thank you.
One last question for me, then I'll open it up here. Is there's a significant increase in the hardware software, which I would expect.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could, because we didn't have really a comparison of fiscal 13 in detail. Were there just a couple of things?
Yeah, I
that
have,
made that
actually,
up?
I should have printed it out. I have a spreadsheet that has the 13 and
Oh,
then
it
the
does.
new. But I can go through each item if you'd like.
If there's just a couple of bigger ones, just to highlight, if nothing else, it
The
underlines
biggest
the work
one
you're
is
doing.
Munis, which, you know, the town runs on Munis. It does payroll, it does pretty much everything else. Munis has almost a standard 5% annual increase. So the Munis hit this year was $2,227.83. So that's, that one, like I say, goes up pretty much 4 or 5% every year.
Yep.
We had several other smaller ones. We did have a $1,750 virtual town hall, which is the maintenance on the website. And the website we use quite a bit, especially during storms, and it's also another way for people to communicate with the administration in the town. For example, you can send a question to the town manager via the website. And last year, we received over 1,500 of those emails. So it's very useful.
Wow.
But, of course, maintenance went up on that, too. So,
Sure.
the maintenance for the fiber, the town-owned fiber optic network, up until this year, the local access channel was taking the full hit for that. But per an agreement that we had, we were going to, this year and henceforth, divide that into thirds. It'll be 1/3 local access, 1/3 IT, and 1/3 IT over at the school side. So that's a $1,666.67 increase. Software maintenance for our office, server, Windows, desktop, OS, we had to renew those licenses. That's $5,000.
Those annual licenses?
No, these ones we actually originally got in 2010.
Okay.
So, and then there was another $960 for that's an annual for a Verizon DSL backup circuit. We have a Charter business internet connection that's cable. So what this thing does, if our internet connection with Charter goes down, this automatically switches over. So we have connectivity to the internet. In theory, we should never go down. So, in theory.
In theory, okay.
Then there was some other little ones in there, some of the vision stuff that Cindy Cosgrove has, went up a little bit.
Yep.
And those are the big items. The total increase was $13,056.47.
Okay.
Yeah, this had been something I just, up until this year, had been pretty much flatlined. And I couldn't hold out anymore.
I'd say we've got to invest in this stuff eventually, or we're going to miss something and we're going to create a public safety issue, I would think, on that. Ed,
Yeah,
something to
also,
add to
Mr.
that?
Chairman, well, first of all, I'd like to thank Bill for all the hard work that he does in supporting our systems here at Town Hall, and quite often he's asked to help out at various other locations outside of general government, Town Hall. But we asked Bill, because we're always living on the edge when it comes to this line item. It's been so tight that for the first year, I asked him to put, we talked about it, we got a little buffer of $1,000, just I want that to be known. Because we always seem to be scrambling if something should fail and we need a part. It's either a transfer or we're looking in other areas. So we needed a little flexibility if something should fail. Quite honestly, it should be more than the $1,000 we have earmarked. But for the first time, we're gonna build that in, see how that works, and we may ask for something a little greater next year, but it's a step in the right direction.
Okay. And I'd like to add, just for the folks at home, from fiscal 10 to last year, fiscal 13, within the hardware, software maintenance, on an original budget of 53.5 grand, we've gone up maybe 5 grand over that 1, 2, 3, 4 year period. So this was overdue to, get this caught up, at least on certain things. Next year could be different, though, Bill.
Yeah, next year,
We'll see where that goes.
yeah.
I'm going to open it up to questions, Bill. Chris?
Munis, that's your platform, correct?
The what's that?
Your Munis software, is that your platform?
Yes, Munis.
How many years you've been running, using that?
Munis, since at least 1999 when I first came here.
Have we looked into other platforms? Or is it just?
We're happy with the one we have.
Really?
Yeah, we're sort of,
We actually were used as a pilot or a model for other communities to follow. That's how successful the implementation and the way we're utilizing the software has gone since we switched over. We actually switched over because our other software, Pentimation, was not Y2K compliant, so we were forced to look at it at that time, but it's done everything and then some for what we need to do.
All right, and your software purchase, I know you have your licenses, I see here. Do you book them under each department? Is that how it works? If you need a laptop or some sort of software-related purchase?
that's pretty much centralized with IT.
So is that under hardware, software? I was looking for that detail.
You mean like for, yeah, if you want to,
You're gonna buy Office 2010, I'm just using a number here, but
yep, that is,
where would that be? What
that's
line item
under
would that be?
the, it's.
I see licensing, I just don't see the software.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Isn't that part of the capital? Isn't that part of the,
well, the capital would be, if we do purchase new computers, that would be in the capital. But, for example, this spreadsheet that I have a line item, MS software licensing, Microsoft software licensing.
See it right there.
Yeah, I see the licensing, but I was just wondering where the actual purchase. Is that where?
Yes, that would be it,
There's licensing fees you pay every year.
right. Yeah,
is
that would,
we-
that would be it right there, the 5,000.
So the 5,000 covers licensing and software actual purchases, like if you're gonna go buy some actual software.
Yeah, that would be the licensing primarily for Office and Windows and server software. We do have a bunch of other licensing.
It just says licensing, that's why I'm questioning it. I'm just wondering under what line item are you booking your software purchases under?
You mean licensing on this
I didn't
particular?
say licensing, I'm actually talking hard software.
Yeah, that would come under the hardware, software maintenance bucket.
Maintenance, really?
Well, we don't really have on this particular sheet,
So we don't buy software?
we do, but I see there is kind of a little bit of confusion. This particular spreadsheet that I created has a line item for software licensing, but you don't see that in the one you're looking at.
No, I see the line item called software licensing. It's very specific. It's for licensing. That's why I thought you'd be talking about, you have to actually purchase software to hold a license, right? So you must have purchased it under some of the line item.
Correct, yes, we did.
So where are you booking it under?
I guess I'm not seeing the same thing you're looking at.
All right, if you're gonna go out and buy Office 2010, where would you book it under?
Well,
I'm just
normally,
using that number.
when we bought,
On whose line item would it come out of?
Yeah, all right.
it would come under, it depends. If it was a capital purchase, we would purchase the software with the computer.
Yeah.
And it would be bundled together, which is, we bought, in the last couple of years, we purchased 60 brand-new computers. So all those computers came with the licensing. We purchased the licensing is bundled with the computer. If it's something beyond that, then it's either specific to the item itself, or it comes bundled, it all drops into this hardware, software maintenance bucket, which is probably not exactly correctly.
Well, because it says what, 0, if I'm looking at it correctly? HB switch maintenance,
Oh, okay, so you do have, yeah. Right, above that, it's,
server maintenance, 0, C-chart below.
right, okay, yes. That chart, most of those servers we purchased in, with a 5-year maintenance came with it. So you can see that the expiration is going to be in fiscal year, for 3 of those 4, it'll be fiscal year 2015. So I don't have to worry about that yet. That all came bundled when we bought the server. So
So where do you book computer purchases? If you're going to buy a laptop, where would that go under? Or we just don't plan on buying laptops this year?
they came out of a capital,
Okay, all right.
yeah. Yep.
Okay,
And one more question.
Sure.
Sorry, I've been here.
Go
One
ahead.
more question. For 2014, what are your goals? You fixed the phones now, what's next? What's your next objective?
Well, let's see, I should have brought my town report, I just finished that. I have to update the servers, each one of them. We actually have 12 file servers now. So some of those,
You mean like re-image them? Is that what you're telling me?
no, I'm just going to, some of them have, for example, the hard drive controller software
Mhm.
needs to be upgraded. I've got to do some more with some more security cameras. Munis, I'm looking at a huge Munis upgrade. We're currently running version 9.1. That version has just been retired, so I'm going to look at upgrading to version 9.4. That'll take us to 2015. There's some other issues with the cameras over at the Pappas Fields that I have to fix. I've got to make a new server for Vision. That old server's dying. So I'm going to make a new virtual machine and create that for Cindy. The list is just enormous. I could,
No, you've answered the question. I was just wondering, we're spending the money, I'm just wondering what we're going to do with the money in 2014, that's all. But you
Yeah.
answered the question, so thank you.
yep.
thanks, Bill. Any other questions? Jim?
Through the chair, I just had a question, actually, this is capital. Now, the telephone system, is it going to be paid over a few years?
Yes, it was a lease
Okay.
purchase.
Because I'm looking at 2014's 19,000, and then 015 is another 19,000,
Right.
so it's being spread out.
Payments. We initially it was a $83,000, $85,000
Right.
system. We put roughly $45,000 down,
45.
financed the remaining balance over a period of 2 years.
And that, okay, yeah, that answers the question, thanks.
All set? Ann, anything?
I'm all set.
Okay, so we have in front of us a recommended budget of $138,592. This is a 12.65% increase over prior year, or $15,567. Most of that hardware, software, and a little bit in salary. Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Bill, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Okay, our next budget is the Zoning Board of Appeals. This, I believe, should go quickly. This budget is unchanged from prior year at $10,526. And that amount is for administrative assistant. I don't believe Dennis needed to come on this, so that's fine. Save him a night. Do we have any questions maybe Ed can talk to? If not, I'll accept a motion on this.
Motion to recommend?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Okay, now we've got, within our Department of Public Services, the Library, Senior Center, and Elder Affairs. Our library folks, I'd love to have come on up first. Please. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm very good.
I know you had asked a question about last year, Bill, and I've only been here since October, so I am not that familiar with everything that happened last year.
Okay. That's
The library
fine.
got new furniture and got some new technology.
Okay. No, that's fine, and we know you didn't own that budget also, so that's fine too. Looking forward to hearing goals with the library. I know we try to take care of you folks. In fact, I'm actually going to be looking for a friendly motion to make sure your library is funded at least to the minimum of the state. I can't make that motion, but I know someone will tonight. So we'll have an adjusted budget to start with. The question is where the numbers go to. But if you could you give us just a little bit of an overview of your 2014 plans relative to your budget?
We are trying to keep abreast of the technology needs for the library. We are hoping to do a lot of work on the library. We have a number of capital requests that we're trying to take care of. The roof, there are a lot of the boiler, the burner problems that we are hoping that this will be the year that we can take care of them. Those aren't actually in the
operating budget, we know. In fact, we're going to talk a little bit more about the capital while you're standing behind the microphone. Ed's going to fill us in a little bit more on just some direction we hope to be going in. And we have this conversation every year. So, yeah, if you'd like to focus for us on the operating piece for the moment, not to ignore the CIP part.
Okay, we're also looking for, I'm not sure which budget. I had turned in 2 budgets to Ed.
Okay.
And in one of them, we were looking for an increase in the materials budget for the library because we would like to free up some of the state aid funds that come in that are under the Board of Trustees direction. We would like to have more of that money to spend on things like particular pieces of furniture and capital lines that haven't been fully funded, and I have a whole, let's see here, staff development programs, more programs for the public, furniture that will, right now in our meeting room, all the children's programs take place, and their furniture and their needs are kind of taking over the meeting room, so we're hoping to get a couple of cabinets that we can put their things in, some new chairs, and these are the kinds of things that would be funded, some of these through state aid. We're also looking at a rearrangement of the library, and right now the state aid funds, the Board of Trustees have approved having a space consultant at least help us figure out how we're going to arrange this. We'd like to make the most of the space that we've got. A lot of we want to do things, I think I also mentioned about technology. One of the things we would love to see would be a part-time technology assistant. Right now I know that that's probably something that I don't think Ed is recommending, but just to kind of go over that, some of the things we were hoping if we had somebody to do, and Bill and Kathy Hansen have been very helpful, but some of the things we're looking at is someone who can help purchase, install, and troubleshoot hardware, purchase and update software, ensure that our technology is secure, manage the library's webpage and other sites that we're hoping to develop, create an online newsletter, provide technology training for staff, work with our CWMR's network, and investigate funding for projects like digitizing some of the local history materials that we have. We're running out of space for the hard copies. And just helping us keep abreast of the kind of needs that the library will be facing in the next year.
Okay, that's fine. And I see, and thank you for putting in the technology assistant request. I know we did not fund that this year.
Right.
This is exactly the kind of thing we want to see until you basically are stepping on Ed's neck and we finally fund it or fund something that, you know, would make sense for you and for the town. Just a quick question on that. You do receive some technology support from Bill?
Yes.
And from the folks here? That's, you know, just
The
as
library
necessary?
just purchased a number of new staff computers, and Bill and Kathy worked with us on doing that. Bill's going to help us set them up.
Okay. I just want to make sure that no one had the idea that we were contracting outside for that kind of thing, that we were still
Oh.
taking care of that in-house, just so everyone's clear on
No,
that,
that's-
so, thank you. So what I'd like to do, unless you have some more to add, and I appreciate you had a couple of pages of background for that, we keep that information and refer to that. We'll probably refer to it next year anyways, as
Okay.
we hope to make this budget evolve for you. Just a couple of things, like I said, I hope we can come up with a friendly adjusted budget that takes care of our minimum operating need here. And once again, before you leave, I want to get a little bit more from Ed on some either expectations or forecasts from a capital perspective where we're going with the library. I think it's a good opportunity now. Ed,
Just
did you
a
want
few
to
other
fill us in?
comments on the operational side of the budget.
Thank you.
And, I appreciate Cindy preparing this budget. Certainly, she's recognized the need in conjunction with the library commissioners. And let me first tell you that if you look at the bottom of the page, those priorities have been identified and were actually presented in a spreadsheet that went along with the budget recommendation that we presented to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. So we do recognize the need. In terms of the technology assistant, we know that's a real need. We're trying to assist in any way we can on this side of government. Ask Kathy and Bill to take a look at what it is they could use support, what area of support is needed. That has been recognized, and certainly I think we can help out somewhat. 100% probably not. So maybe if things change or a little further on down the road, we may be looking at revisiting this and try to offer them some type of assistance or support in the area of technology, and maybe use that individual as a shared individual, and at times when they're not needed down there, maybe they can assist Bill, because I know Bill is out straight. And if you actually look at the workload that Bill has, and you compare it to other communities, in most communities, they have staffing level of 2 or 3. He's a one-man show. So there are many days that Bill gets frustrated because he can't keep pace with everything that's going on. So we're trying to look at that as well. So I just wanted to comment that the need has been recognized in those 5 areas. We try to make an effort in increasing the library materials, because certainly that is another priority. We have done that in the past. We would like to continue to do that, to take some pressure off the estate aid funding, to free that up to use for other purposes and other programming that they cannot do through the operational side of the budget. So I'll leave it at that, and we may have some more to offer based upon the questions that the Finance Committee members may have.
Okay.
Ed,
Mike?
in typical towns, do the libraries have technology assistance? I mean, I suspect that's something that's relatively important with the way the world works today.
Yeah, well, I would say a lot of that support is external. They're done through a vendor, and in most cases, those vendors you're gonna pay a higher rate of pay than you would for someone who you may have on board as part-time. Unfortunately, these areas, public libraries and other human resource type departments have suffered cutbacks over the years. These are easy targets.
Yeah.
The library provides a valuable service to the residents of this community. We like to maintain at least a level service funded budget, because they're doing a fantastic job. So we're committed to this. I do support that, at least an increase of $792 to at least get them to their net minimum contribution, because we would have to jump through a number of hoops to ask for a waiver, and the cost of doing that is far going to exceed the
Yeah, it
$792.
makes no sense. I don't even think that'd be considered. I'm not too sure how the process started, that we ended up coming up just a little bit short on it, but, you know, we're here to
I'll be honest with you.
kind of
quite
finish the rounding
honestly,
errors,
and
you know.
we made a recommendation, I think before that number came in, something basically that we overlooked. We would suggest at least bringing it up to that level.
Any other questions or comments? Chris?
Your, I'm sorry, Mr. Timothy, the library materials line item, the 70, what it would say $75,000. What's the, what process do you go to determine, like, is that covering books? Is this most of that made up of magazines, books, or? I'm just sort of wondering what your process is and how you determine what materials you buy and why it's sort of so high. I mean, I'm looking at the number in 2010 versus 2014, it seems to increase.
The
Pretty
price
substantially.
of everything has increased dramatically.
Yeah, but this is pretty, from 63,000 to, you know, whatever, so.
We purchase, in addition to obviously books, which are a traditional library purchase, there's a lot of demand for new DVDs, for books on cassette, books on CD. We've got a lot of commuters in the town. The amount that's spent on magazines is relatively small. We purchase databases that people can use from home or wherever with their library card number, and those are very current information on a lot of different topics. We purchase downloadable books that people can download onto their whatever their.
The majority of this money is spent on what, is what I'm trying to get at? I mean, is it?
Majority of the money is
Trying
spent
to
on.
understand how, if we're spending this kind of money every year, what are we doing? I mean, you have one building, you can't house everything in one building. I'm
Well,
assuming you
obviously,
have to-
we remove things that are out of date, that are no longer being used. The library is, a lot of what people in this town want from the library are very current materials. They want bestsellers, they want new movies, they want downloadable materials. So we are not keeping everything, obviously, that we ever bought. That can't be done because there's, you know, a finite size to the building and an infinite number of materials. We have a very good circulation in Auburn.
Hey, Chris, I'd like to add, Cindy, on your behalf, I think looking back at that fiscal 10 number, that was a bad year. That was a year we pretty much trashed the library budget. So if you exclude that, your fiscal 11, 12, and 13, I don't see much of an increase there at all in it.
No, I'm just, when you add them all up, that's a lot of books to buy over the last 3 or 4 years, and magazines and things, and just, how do you come up with that, the minimum number? I mean, how did you come up with $82,620? That's the number in your request.
Part of that is based on the state requirement for how much money is spent on materials in your library budget if you want to receive state certification. Without state certification, Auburn residents can't use other state libraries. They can't borrow books through interlibrary loan. We can't apply for grants. There's a lot of penalties to not maintaining the state certification level.
But I thought we're, what, $800 short of that level? Is that what we are now?
That's where we
Based on
are.
town administration's number, correct?
That's where we are now. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's $794 to get us to the level of funding that we're required to. I also want to apologize to
It's
Diane. 'cause-
Diane, I
'cause I
apologize.
think I called her Cindy.
Yeah, and then
And I apologize.
our
to Diane.
apologies. Shame on us. Chris, anything else? Get you, okay.
Looking at me, yeah, so I'll be quick.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's good, too. Do we have any other questions or comments on this?
Question?
Yes.
Hi, this is probably a question for Ed. Can you address the line item with the heating oil and the electricity?
Yes. Prior to Diane coming on board, we had a discussion with Cindy and actually the trustees, because we wanted to capture all of the costs associated with the library. If the library is going to hold us to a net minimum contribution, then we want to properly reflect all of our true costs associated with that. Previously, those costs were included under general services. So we transferred those over in year one, knowing very well that it would not meet the total cost for because each department had limited growth. So we had to live within the parameters of that limited growth. That being said, we're monitoring that now. We haven't gone through one full year yet. We will at the end of this fiscal year. So we're going to have to adjust that. And the commitment we made is we're going to at least identify it, put it in the budget. We will expend up to that level, and then general services would assume that difference. So next year, we will present a budget that accurately reflects the total cost of that. We won't know that till we go through 1 year.
Okay.
We are,
Additionally, I think, Diane, they're looking at a new system that hopefully is going to drive down that cost.
right, we are looking to convert to natural gas. We have, I just got a call from NSTAR today saying that we had asked them, we had applied for having the connection done, and they called me today and said that there will be no charge for that. We've, with Ed, we've arranged to create enough capital funds to buy the burner. And I've talked to Bill Coyle and Kenny Fairbanks. They're going to be able to dig the trench. So I think we can do this transfer with very little money, and I think it will make I think that there's a possibility that the $5,000 we have in the heating budget will actually, our heating budget will come in somewhere near that.
Good.
Which is, we're nowhere close this year.
And we understood that, too. We knew right now we're playing a bookkeeping game to get us to a certain point, and we knew it was going to take multiple years to get to that point.
Okay.
Very well aware of that.
Just continuing on that vein, I think this is for Ed also. I see that the line item for custodian is zeroed out.
Yes, as you recall, under the new charter, we created a facility management division under DPW. So all the custodial costs associated with each department were transferred, in this case, from library over to facility. So that was actually done in FY13.
So doesn't that defeat the purpose if you're trying to capture all the costs?
That is a good point. Well, first of all, I think for accountability, we have to put it under one department. I think we would be allowed, like sewer enterprise or like solid waste or any other thing, we can capture it as an indirect cost.
Thank you.
And more on that topic, custodial services, I assume things are going uneventfully, if not fine with that. I know there were a couple extra meetings that we had last summer on that, that I know our library trustees are very protective of the building, making sure things are in as good a shape as possible for the public. I had expressly requested if there were any issues that if I could hear about them, and I didn't hear anything at all. Has that worked out well with Bill and his staff?
Yes, we're working on it. We just, I don't know if this is, talk about Matt's increase in hours.
Yes, actually, we had some discussions this week about an additional need at the library in terms of number of hours in support of custodial services. So we're working, we have some discussions ongoing with Bill to try to make that happen without impacting the library budget as well as facility management. So it's something we're considering right now, and one way or another we'll make it happen.
Good, at least we're communicating on it, which I think was a big concern when we met in your office last summer. You all set, Ann?
All set.
All right, any other questions? Like I said, we do have a budget in front of us. We don't have a motion on the floor yet.
What's the new budget number that?
I'm looking for that now, Chris, so
Okay.
you're right on top of this so far, you know. I'll accept a request once again for some number.
We're gonna talk about CIP.
Um,
we want.
I'll tell you what, let's vote on this first, and then we'll talk CIP. Don't go anywhere.
So I motion to increase line item 5510, library material by $800, bringing it to $75,800.
So moved.
And that would bring our total to,
138,300.
Whatever it is.
and our total library would be, yeah, 570, 371,
570,371, yep.
in my head. So we have a motion to adjust the budget up by, how much was that in?
800.
$800, to a total budget of $570,371. Do we have a second or any discussion on that?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you on the operating budget. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
We're looking for some further comments on, actually, I'll start with Ed on this in terms of where we think we may be going with the library and what discussions are going on.
Yes, we had several meetings with respect to the capital improvement needs. As you know, a number of capital items have been approved over the last several years. And I think a lot of those were put on hold as a result of a consideration, A, for a new library, which actually went to the voters and was defeated. And then they were looking at a rehab option with total cost about $3.2 million, Matt? Does that sound about right? So that's still a possibility. What the trustees decide to do with that, I really don't know, but in the interim, we're looking at and coupling all of the capital associated with the library to see, A, if the priority has changed, or B, whether or not to step back, re-examine, and amend, and I think that's what's going to be done. Certainly, we don't want to jeopardize anything that has been suggested in the rehab project and waste the taxpayers' money. So that being said, an article is being written to amend a capital item for $250,000 that was earmarked for the ceiling as well as a fire suppression system. And that is going to be amended to include a number of items which has not been presented yet, but it's also going to, that consideration is being done in light of a capital item that's been approved for doors and windows for $80,000. There is a capital item for repair of the roof at $40,000, so they're looking into whether or not it makes sense to do a repair on that or a total replacement. And maybe Matt or Diane can share maybe some additional information that they're considering. But there are a number of items. Quite honestly, the ceiling and the fire suppression system was earmarked to be borrowed at our borrowing that we just went out for.
Correct.
We actually decided to put that item on hold until determination is made, because we didn't want to borrow it and sit on that money and potentially face some arbitrage issues and pay fines and penalties as a result of not spending down that money.
Did the borrowing for the carpeting?
That
was
did go
part of it?
forward.
That did go forward, so we'll be getting some new carpeting?
Well, we've got, the capital request is $20,000. The cost of new carpeting is probably going to be closer to 40.
I thought I saw
Because
your
the
note
capital
on that.
request, I think, was 2006, was put in 2006. So increasing that to the amount that will enable us to put in the new carpeting is part of what we'd like to use the $250,000 for. We've been looking at the roof. The roof has been resurfaced twice. To resurface it again it's not up to code to resurface it again. We've got $35,000 in that capital request because we did some maintenance on the roof with some of it. We're looking somewhere around $130,000 to put a new roof on the lower part of the the building, which is where the main leaks are. The roof is leaking as I'm standing here right now, and it leaks down into the library. And so we really feel that, you know, I've talked to Bill Coyle, I've talked to at least 3 roofers, I've gotten up on the roof, and I think that we really, it's kind of our plan is that with various things going on, we don't know what is going to be going on with the library, but whatever is the ultimate point, the library is going to be in the building that it's in for probably at the minimum 5 years. And there's just work that just absolutely has to be done to keep it in decent shape.
I see here in the CIP that new roof, we had targeted, budgeted, whatever word you want to use, $250,000 in fiscal 2017. So we certainly have identified it. My guess is we'll be doing a lot of work on that well before 2017 as part of this. So this part of the CIP will be amended in motion, and that's including what we had approved for 2013 also, right? Okay.
And that will be done, it would have to be done on the next cycle, because we don't want to remove that now unless this article gets approved. That is going to require an amendment.
And that's fine. I see a boiler is in here for 20 grand. Is that an adequate sum for what? Is this talking to the conversion?
I think I think we amended that, Ed, to 30,000?
Yeah, I'd have to look at my notes.
That'll adjust also?
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
and I,
Just talking to the
Bill
bigger
Coyle's
items
been
here.
looking, he's been working with vendors, but, and we've also been working with Joe Fahey, and we're pretty sure that that amount will take
Okay.
care of that.
Well,
So that's not a piece that's coming out of the 250,000 that we'd like to use for other maintenance needs.
That's good. I mean, we've deferred way too much here, and I know there's some good reasons for it, but at some point in time, this committee doesn't like to see our capital assets get eroding too far ahead. That's just something we won't accept anymore. So it's good to see we've got a fresh plan. Maybe it's a short-term plan, but in place to address those needs. That's great. Any other questions or comments for Diane before I let her get from behind the microphone? All right. Hey, Diane, nice to see you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your budget presentation. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next operating budget is the senior center. How are you tonight?
Fine, how are you?
I'm good, I'm good.
For you, those of you who don't know me, I'm Cheryl Westerman. I've been the assistant director for the last 16 years and the acting director for the last year.
Cheryl, thanks for your time tonight,
You're welcome.
and thanks for kind of putting in, can I say, double service, double duty, handling the role there. That's much appreciated. I believe there's some process in place still regarding the director role, Ed?
Currently underway, and certainly, I certainly want to thank Cheryl for all the hard work and effort she's given the town over the past year. She's gone from part-time to full-time, and I know that was difficult for her to do. She's got a family she's raising, so thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate all your hard work.
Regarding the budget, Cheryl, was this, I'll say, of your doing, or how was the process handled where we didn't have a director in place?
Well, basically, the E&S portion of the budget is level funded, and the only consideration we made, outside of the director's salary, because that's currently, there's a process currently ongoing for that, basically recognized any contractual increases that may be due to employees. So to that extent, it's a very simple budget. We would like to get the director's position, once she's on board, to analyze the operational side of the budget and make a recommendation in terms of need and activity as to whether or not they would like to see some growth there.
Okay. Okay. Cheryl, from your perspective as Assistant Director, anything you'd like to add, feel free to, comment on that.
Well, we've added a few new programs. We have added Zumba and an iPad class. We have added Qigong, which is meditation in motion, Tai Chi, piano lessons, line dancing, and we have expanded our newsletter from 6 to 8 pages recently. We send out about 1,600 newsletters a month to various places in town. We've formed a wonderful relationship with Emeritus, the Woods at Eddy Pond, and they've been coming up and doing cooking demonstrations and trivia contests, and we're going to have a big bingo event up at the Meadows in Leicester in May. And the state grant, which was has gone up from, it was $27,909, has gone up $3,300 this year. We've applied for and received a St. Vincent's grant, Rides for Health for $1,200, and a MARTAP grant for new fax machines for $327, and also got a Auburn Cultural Council has awarded the Senior Center $500 to do a provide entertainment for a FASCR cookout. So we've been busy, and I couldn't have done it with all the volunteers, the help of them. We have about 108 volunteers who saved the town about $100,000.
Nice, nice.
They worked hard.
Oh, nice to recognize that. Ed?
Now, Cheryl, you
They're wonderful.
mentioned line dancing. I know that's something that Chair is interested in. Is that something he could participate in?
Absolutely.
I'm
We
still,
need a few, we need a few men.
I need to walk a straight line, and I'm having a little trouble with that. I don't know, it's just probably a family thing, I don't know. Cheryl, you've been doing grant writing for this stuff, is how those grants are coming in? So I at least want to acknowledge it if it sounds like a lot of grant money coming in, so great, thank you very much for doing that. That's something we don't necessarily see with these stale numbers in front of us. Anything else to add on that before I open up for questions? Okay, anyone, questions here at all? Jim?
Through the chair, I just had one question about the gas, minibus, gas line. I mean, we've already gone over that figure for this fiscal year. And we still have several months to go. And I'm just wondering if we're going to just end up having to raise this again next year.
Well, that's, quite honestly, that's a concern not only for this department, but it is for general
everything.
services as well, and that's always a tough call to make because the prices are fluctuating up and down throughout the year. It seems to be holding at the higher level now, so we may have to make a correction to that. But I can tell you, there is a line item under the Elder Services Grant that provides for a sum of money for motor vehicle fuel as well. I don't recall offhand what that value is. $5,400? But anyway, between the two, we try to make it work. It has worked in the past, but certainly if there is more transportation that is requiring more fuel consumption, then we're going to have to make that adjustment.
Okay.
64, Ed.
64, and we may have some flexibility in that we can do a transfer or an amendment within the grant. I also want to applaud Cheryl. She has done all of the grant paperwork as well, and that's a major undertaking. And so she submitted all the paperwork for FY13. It got approved as submitted with a $3,000 increase. So there has to be justification for that increase. So she put a lot of hard work into that.
Fantastic. Any other questions? Okay, we have a budget request in front of us for $122,942. That's a 1.04% increase over fiscal 13. Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Cheryl, thank you. Thanks again. Nice to see you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Let's see. Our next budget is the Executive Office of Town Manager. This budget, we'll call it the town manager budget, the amount requested is $324,757. This is a 1.49% increase over the fiscal 13 appropriation. I'll defer to Ed for any comments on this. I'm sure speaking on behalf of Julie.
Yes, and she sends her apologies. She could not be present tonight. She had a commitment. But once again, the 1.49% increase is primarily attributable to contractual obligations for the position of town manager. And the E&S has been level funded. There is also under the clerical portion, some contractual obligations within the clerical union contract that is recognized as well.
Okay, do we?
Basic.
Yeah, pretty basic. Any questions or comments on this?
What's parking service? $400.
That is, there are a number of violations that are issued by the police department. Those tickets are turned over to and paid over in the town manager's office. There is a parking clerk. And there is a service that's provided that shows what tickets have been issued, what have been paid, and what's outstanding.
So what's the $400 for? The software?
It's for the report, and it's for the purchase of tickets as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion on this $324,757 budget?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Our next budget is the reserve account. Ed, I know sometimes we push this back or don't push it back. It seems we're, at this point, somewhat uneventful. We should be able to vote on it tonight,
Yes.
assuming I can find it. There it is. Okay, the reserve account. We have a town manager recommended budget of $350,000 in the reserve account. This is two line items, the reserve fund and the salary wage fund. The increase in this is $160,000 over fiscal 13. This really is driven by wage negotiations outstanding with the unions on this and our reserve fund itself, those being the two pieces. Ed, anything to add on this before we?
Well, as you can see, the reserve fund is level funded at $150,000, and quite honestly, hopefully we can increase that consistent with the financial policies that were adopted by the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen. If you recall, we had a target in there of 0.5% of the total operating budget. So that line item would be more in line with the total reserve of $250,000 versus the traditional $190,000. Total reserve, both line items of 0.5%. Our total operating budget for FY14 is $53 million and change. If you subtract out SOAR Enterprise, which makes up about $1.7 million of that, it's going to bring us down to about $250. To do that now, certainly that's a target. We're not looking to do that all in 1 year. Certainly, we made a provision within FY14 to allow for a potential COLA increases up to 2% for all of our bargaining groups. 2% on the town side represents approximately $174,000 of current wages paid. So that's been built in to come up with a total request of $200,000 in the salary reserve. So if 174 of the 200 is for 2%, that leaves less than $40,000 historically that we have appropriated as a contingency for other wage considerations. But certainly, all of our contracts are going to be renewed. They all expire on June 30th, so, you know, the $40,000 isn't as necessary as it would be for contracts that used to be staggered, so we believe that this would be adequate enough to meet at least our needs at this point in time.
Okay. Questions or comments? You mentioned the town side regarding the salary wage reserve. Is the school?
As part of the school request, they had an increase of 2.41%, or I think it was close to $800,000. Their 2% is part of that number.
Is part of this number or their own budget?
No, their own budget.
Their own budget,
Right.
just so we're clear on that.
Right.
Okay. That's fine. I was hoping you'd say that, as a matter of fact. Any comments regarding reserve fund or salary or wage? I'll accept a motion on this then.
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? So voted, thank you. That was for $350,000. Our next budget, Human Resources. Human Resources was a new budget in fiscal '13. That budget was just over $43,000. The amount requested for fiscal '14 is $45,586, a 5.57% increase over the fiscal '13 appropriation. Ed, any comments on this budget? I know we only have 3 or 4 line items, so.
Trying to locate it.
153.
Your human resource person will not be happy with that.
I know, I'm glad she's not here. No, that salary represents, there was a consideration given when the position was transitioned over from the treasurer collector's office. So that's current year, it's current level funding. The other line items, miscellaneous supplies, medical exams, and travel have been adjusted based upon level of activity. Certainly, there's more recognition. We have a HR department now. All of the medical exams are now coordinated through that department, where they were done on a departmental level before, or
Right.
under personnel, in some cases both. So we're trying to reflect, based upon historical data, what level of funding is adequate to meet that need.
Okay. Do you have any questions on this? Pretty simple budget.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Our next budget is Town Hall. Okay, Town Hall budget is level funded over fiscal '13 at $30,200. There's 4 line items in here. The one adjustment that we see is the custodian, I'll say salary or wages have been removed, which is now we understand that's falling under facilities maintenance.
Correct.
Okay. Which had been removed in fiscal '13. So it's a level funded budget at $30,200. Any questions for Ed on this?
Who oversees this budget? Is this Julie's department, or is this your?
Yeah, town hall is done through the manager's office.
But we don't book this under that, correct? It's a separate.
Separate department.
There being no questions, do we have a motion?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Our next budget, general services. Town manager recommends a flat-funded budget under general services at $1,263,932, unchanged from fiscal 13. Any questions for Ed regarding this? The way it's a movement within the gas, oil, diesel, and insurance and bonds. Ed, any direction on what moved those numbers around?
Certainly, the only item of concern certainly is gas, oil, and diesel. I can tell you, just for the month of January, or February, our gas, oil, and diesel bill was $31,000. And it's been running at a level of roughly 22. So because of the activity of the storms, our vehicles are on the road. We really took a hit. But we adjusted the electricity line item based upon some energy savings that we've recognized. We entered into a new agreement with Constellation Energy, and we're also looking at a energy savings initiative that we may be implementing through our Green Communities designation as well as our grant funding. So we would be retrofitting a number of our public buildings that would recognize an estimated total savings just on the town side of about $8,000 per year. We have grant dollars that would allow us to do that. So that's something that we would probably be realizing in FY14. That work has not been done yet. We're expecting that work to be done by June 30th. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, the other line items are basically level funded.
Can you comment on streetlights, Ed? That one isn't.
Well, there are a number of street acceptances that have been done over the last year that require us to assume the cost of lighting those streetlights. That's one area that we looked into saving some money and maybe doing some retrofit lighting, but it doesn't qualify under the dollars that are available to do that at this point. So those costs continue to go up. It's something that we're going to continue to look at. It may require an investment of dollars to do that up front, because those lighting options are not granted any incentives through the utility companies at this point in time.
It's where they make their money. Yeah. Further to that, and I didn't have a chance to check our actual versus budget, is our fiscal 13 appropriation okay, or is that?
On streetlights?
Yeah, are we at real risk there?
I'll give you a year-to-date right now.
Thank you.
Streetlights, appropriation 74,000. Year-to-date, we spent 70,985 for a balance of 3,014. So clearly, we're going to be short there.
Okay. And I only bring that up, and I wasn't hoping you were going to say that, but it kind of lends some credence to 100 grand being a better number to budget than.
And quite honestly, when we prepared this, we did a budget to actual and projected out through the rest of the year, so we know that that line item is short, and that's why we made the adjustment. Certainly, we're coming into the final quarter of the fiscal year, and we use actuals for the prior fiscal year to project out our estimates for this purpose, for 14. So we believe this to be a good number right now.
We don't get an advantage with a change in daylight savings time, correct?
Well, actually, you do. The lights are going to
A
go
little bit, right?
later. Yeah.
Okay. Trying, man. Anyone else have anything better? Any other questions on this? Okay, we have a budget of $1,263,932, flat funded from fiscal 13.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Ed, thank you. Our last two budgets are debt and interest. And I have no problem taking discussion on these collectively if we want to. Obviously, they're very related. Those will be our last two budgets of the evening. I'll start with our maturing debt. The town manager recommended budget is $3,227,378. This is an increase of $580,330 over fiscal 13, or a 21.92% increase on that. Ed, comments on, just overall comments on the maturing debt?
Yes, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, these are actual schedules, debt schedules that are in place, so these are concrete numbers. What I would like to communicate to the Finance Committee is, certainly we have, when we presented our financial plans, this is one area of concern that we have, is our rising debt ratio. And certainly, as you can see, debt has gone up by, since last fiscal year, by $580,000. So that's why we want to look at areas of opportunity to apply, if we can, permanent revenue sources above and beyond the 1/10 of 2.5% as an earmark against our capital needs. So we can get there a lot quicker and ultimately fund all of our capital needs through tax levy or general fund revenues and not through bond proceeds. So, as you're well aware, you've looked at our 5-year capital. There are needs out there that are approaching, I think for FY14, $1.7 million. Certainly, that's going to have an impact on future years' debt as well. There will be debt retiring, but this is one area we need to focus on, concentrate on, and reduce our obligation and ultimately our long-term liability.
2 points I'll make, and I'll certainly open this up. Just of note, if I'm reading the schedule correctly, we'll have approximately $500,000 annually coming off by 2019 or within the next 5 years, with the CIP bonds in 6, 7, 8, and 9. I hope I'm reading that correctly anyways.
Well, as you can see, FY14, the level of, are you looking at the schedule here, Mr. Chairman? FY15, it falls off by roughly $200,000. It goes from 3.227 to 3,030,030.
Yeah.
But that doesn't account for any debt that we're going to incur as a result of what has been earmarked in FY14.
Right. Now, so I was looking at just a couple of the bonds that it looks like when they are expiring, which would be, we've got annual payment or I identified $190,000 and $340,000. Those two bonds, fiscal 6 and fiscal 8, those, if I'm reading correctly, expire fiscal 17 and fiscal 19.
What would, yes, fiscal 18, we retire the $2.8 million issue.
Yeah, I think so.
That happened in 2007.
Yeah.
So we retire, roughly, we retire that bond. We save $160,000. Then we retire in 2020.
Unless I misread it.
2020 looks like it's the first time there's any real significant
Right.
reduction in debt.
Right.
Yeah. I just want to make
The
sure.
major reduction occurs in FY25 when we retire the high school debt.
Right, which makes sense.
Prior to that, we retire smaller omnibus bond issues in the vicinity of, $2 to $3 million, which allows us to assume more debt just to stay even. But once again, that's why we created this plan. So ultimately, we have a larger infusion of tax dollars, or incrementally get there each year, that's going to whittle that amount down.
Right, that we don't have to finance.
Is there any level, Ed, that you as the financial officer get comfortable with as far as the annual principal payments?
Well, certainly Moody's looks at it two different ways. They're looking at the amount that is paid within the tax levy, and they look at the amount that is paid through a debt exclusion or outside of the tax levy. So they actually give you a ratio for both. The ratio they're most concerned with, because they know that level of debt has to be raised automatically outside the levy limit. The one that is within the levy limit has to be supported through taxation or other general fund revenues. So if there's a decline in general fund revenues, that puts more of a strain on the operational side of the budget, it means less growth because you have a fixed cost that you have to maintain. So, quite honestly, we still have a pretty healthy debt ratio, but the trend is moving upwards, and that's what we're concerned about. We have to stop that.
We had talked, this is probably several months ago now, regarding refinancing some of these bonds. Are we in a position that we'll be doing, I know that's more of a interest impact, I guess, but within that strategy, there's two questions that I have. We're not going to be extending terms on those, correct?
No, we are refunding those and reissue those for the same term but at a lower rate. So I can tell you that the last one we reissued and refunded and reissued was a balance of $900,000 out of a $1.8 million. And we have we had a period of 7 years remaining, and over the 7 years, we saved $140,000 combined. We will be looking at a refunding issue for our high school bonds. We'll be at the halfway mark, which will have a balance of about $10 million. That could result in significant savings over the remaining life of those bonds. If we could recognize $140,000 on a $900,000 balance, just think of what we can realize on a $10 million balance. So those are real savings that we can pass on to the taxpayers because that is raised outside the levy limit and is raised every year through because of that debt exclusion vote.
On the high school bonds, if you were out raising that funding today, same number of years, what do you think you'd get for an interest rate? Just out of curiosity.
For a 20-year purpose, and I can say this because we're looking at the same type of situation for the middle school. The latest issue we went out on, which was $8.9 million, we got a net rate of 1.76%.
Oh my. That's huge.
It's huge. So I think the high school rate,
5.86 or 4.5.
4.588. That's net because we forced a premium on that. So it's probably upwards of 5%, but when you net out, that's significant savings. That's big.
That's huge.
So it is a good time to borrow. It's never been better.
What's the timing of that event for us in terms of refinancing that?
There's a window, and I think the window starts in the spring of 2014.
So a year from now.
Let me just see the issuance.
How long is the window? How long is it open?
I want to say it's within a 6-month period. I'm not sure.
So the trick would be to take advantage of the lower interest rate environment if it's still around by then, which,
Actually, I think the window is actually before the halfway maturity date. There's a window, so, and that's why I say the spring, because this one was issued in June.
kind of,
So we probably have up until June, and I think you can do it 6 months before June.
June next year? Are we
Yeah.
gonna- should be able to save the town a lot of money, because I think the rates will be still very low at
Right.
that point, based on everything
Yeah.
you heard today, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's gonna be a huge benefit to the
Yeah.
town.
Ian?
Question, on our initial rate in the high school, since that, has our Moody's rating increased since we first went out and borrowed that money?
Well, there was a restructuring of the rating agency, and as part of that, we went up to a AA3. We most recently were reviewed and maintained a AA3 with, not in the report, but the verbal communication is with a positive outlook. We're moving in the right direction. We're financially sound. I think they would like to see, and then we said this last year, and there's no guarantee, they want to see a multi-year trend. We expect positive results for FY 13 as we did in 12, by way of increased fund balance, increased free cash, growth in our stabilization and other reserve accounts. That's all positive. At the same time, we're not taxing at 2.5. We continue to compress the tax rate. All positive things. We would definitely have to go out for a rating review for our next borrowing. It could be as early as the fall if the middle school project should get approved. So that's why we changed our cycle in our audit to have it done earlier, so we would be prepared, because they want to see audited financial statements as proof that this trend is continuing. So we want to go at it again. We believe that we would be hopefully in a position to at least get considered for an upgrade. The elements that we do have control of, they've actually said we're rated at a AA2, which is a step up. It's our demographics, our wealth factors that are really holding us behind, that we have really no control over. So we're hoping, they actually used data from 2000.
2000.
And we were hoping they would use data from most recent census of 2010, which I think was released a year or two after. They didn't have that information. They will have it the next time we go to market.
They got an earful from us
Yeah.
regarding that. I don't know. I didn't see any excuse why they didn't have more recent data, but don't get me started. Go ahead.
Just two more questions. Can you repeat again what we saved when we refinanced those bonds that you mentioned?
The most recent refunding issue, which happened a couple of months ago, $900,000 balance, we saved $140,000, $140 and change.
Okay. My other question is, I know we pay the debt for the high school out of the levy limit. Do we pay the interest outside too?
Both debt and interest are
Okay.
outside the levy.
Thank you.
And that 140+ thousand, that's over the remaining life of,
Right, so it was
That bond,
roughly
not 1 year.
30-some-odd $1,000 per year, I believe.
it's a good number, still a good number. We have any other questions? Okay, and we can continue questions when we open up the interest budget also, but we've got a maturing debt budget in front of us of $3,227,378. Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Our last budget of the evening is interest expense. The town manager recommends a budget of $1,075,558. It's actually a reduction over fiscal 13 of $17,296, or a 1.58% decrease in that budget. Ed, can you talk to that decrease, or is that what we've been talking about?
Well, certainly, if you look at the schedule of debt and interest, as you're retiring debt, the interest payment goes down because you're paying less interest on a reduced balance of debt that you're carrying. This budget does not reflect our FY14 capital. What we plan on doing is we would go out, we would ban that capital for a period of 1 year. Certainly, that would be post-July 1, which means the interest payment, that short-term interest payment is due 1 year from the date that you actually go out and borrow that money. So that would be recognized in FY15. So we're able to defer that. We believe the interest rates are going to remain low. The actual interest rate on the short-term borrowing is less than the long-term rate. Probably looking at maybe a 1%. And certainly that does change, the market does change, but once again, it's a great opportunity to borrow money, whether it be short-term or long-term. The interest rates have never been lower.
Open that up for questions, anyone, or comments on this?
What's our total debt now? I know we're just talking about the principal payments earlier. What's our total debt right now? I didn't see a summary. I see it, but I don't see it added up.
If you look at the schedule, that should be as part of the maturing debt. If you look at the last page, total debt we're carrying $28,328,638.
And what is it versus what was last year, Ed, just out of curiosity?
I think it was roughly 24 million. I can get you that number if you like.
I was just curious as to the overall. I missed that last page. Thanks.
We did assume of general obligation 4.8 million, so yeah, I put us 24 million and change, 23 million and change. So as you can see, that debt has grown. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this? All right, seeing we don't have any, we've got a town manager recommended budget for interest of just over $1.75 million.
Motion recommend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thanks. That's all the budgets we have for this evening. Once again, next week, we've got the school department coming in. We'll be discussing their budget and also the middle school project. I believe the school buildings committee took a stance on some warrant articles. Jim had filled us in on, but let's not get ahead of ourselves on that. We have acceptance of minutes from 3/28, 12, and 5/112. Were there any corrections or comments on that? Okay, that's great. And any last comments before we close up shop for the night? Okay, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so voted. Thank you.